much for having me here. And I'm the Chief Innovation Officer at Deloitte. And sometimes it feels that when people come to me that they expect that I have a crystal ball where I just look at it and I'm able to predict the future, right? And it's nothing like that. Innovation is nothing like that in terms of what you need to do. Uh, but essentially, it is a enriching journey because I think I get paid to think. I get paid not to do too much, but to just think and see what the future is going to be like. And today I'm going to be sharing some of that with you in terms of how we basically do that. So let's define prosperity. Equitable access to economic and other opportunities for self-fulfillment where individuals feel a sense of achievement, sense of where you basically have gotten enough and where you can thrive. And the definition of thrive can be different for different people. As you get older, the definition of thrive basically changes. And as I said, a lot of you are in college. I'm sure all of you will agree that money is what you require, right? Because everything is about money and what you can basically buy. How many of you have an iPhone? Not too many. But if you go back in time, about 30, 40 years ago, what you today have in an iPhone essentially is what was essentially housed in multi-story complexes, and that is the kind of computing power that you have in a phone today. And it's not only about the iPhone, right? It's about any smartphone that you have. That is the kind of power that you're basically computing power that you're really looking at. And look at the pricing of gigaflops. Gigaflops is the measure of computing power, and when you really look at that, you're looking at $8.3 trillion, which would have costed in 1961. And today, what's the cost? This is about 116 gigaflops, and that is the kind of computing power that you have. And as you look at it, computing power is only going exponential. Moore's law talked about things doubling every couple of years, but I think now essentially things are doubling almost every other week, and which is what you're really looking at. And today, what we have been able to map out using technology, we've been able to map out a brain of a mouse. And that is the kind of computing power that we have come up with. And not too far away from now, by 2023, it is expected that we will be able to map out a brain, which essentially the human brain, which essentially you're talking about 5 senses, and hopefully all the 5 senses and the human brain, all of that will get mapped by 2023. And little later than that, 2040, all of human brains. As the computing power changes, technologies are continuing to evolve, and things evolve, new business models, alternate ways of doing things, all of which basically change. And which is where I think it comes to the point where each one of you have to be thinking about, if you are really looking at this new world, yeah, these are some of the technologies that are there right now, which are getting applied in the world, in the industry today, and which are very relevant to each one of you. Robotic process automation. Anything that you do in the process area where you want to automate it, there are a whole range of things which essentially are getting automated. Artificial intelligence. In the 80s, people used to talk about artificial intelligence. But today, when you look at AI, when you look at cognitive, when you start looking at the variety of different things that artificial intelligence can do, this essentially has come finally in terms of age from an ascendancy perspective. So how does one define prosperity? We talked about prosperity for each of you, and I will start from that perspective. Work, worker, and workforce is essentially what you're possibly looking at. What is it that I will be working, and what are the kind of jobs that I will have, and what is the kind of person that I'm expected. So most of the things that people are learning today will get automated in the next 3 to 5 years. Now look at mobility. How many of you stay in campus? All of you stay in campus? No? How many of you commute at least 1 hour? See? Mobility. Why do you need to waste, if you have 24 hours in a day, why do you need to waste 2 hours of your day commuting? Why do you need to have that kind of a challenge from a mobility perspective? And I think that is important in terms of where the future of mobility is going to be. In California, they're already talking about not just flying cars. They're talking about digital subterranean highways, which essentially are going to be helping people travel at the speed of 200 to 300 miles per hour. So that is essentially what you're really looking at. So imagine from Gurgaon to Noida, I could possibly go in less than 5 to 10 minutes. That would be a dream come true. I'm sure all of you possibly look like that. And if you're talking about all of this traffic going into subterranean passages, then nobody is going to be talking about pollution, right? The AQI index, which essentially is a big challenge that everybody has today. Education. So the field of education is changing. It's no longer about jobs. It's no longer about degrees. It is about skills. It's the question of what are those skills that you basically learn. AI, ML, cognitive. What are those particular skills that you learn? How are you going to take those particular skills and apply that into what you basically do? What you possibly learn in your traditional degree is going to be a good, strong foundation, which essentially is going to take you through the test of time. But then the skills is what is going to make you differentiate. The skills is what essentially is going to make you very different. So next, go into living. Today we talk about smart cities. First, let's build a city. Then let's talk about building a smart city. I think that is important. Health. You can have everything. You can have money. You can have cars. You can have everything. But if you're ailing and you're a cancer patient, if you're ailing and you have some other disease, and essentially you are barely able to walk, then all of these are out of the window. All of that money is going to go into your health. So health is the next prosperity index that you have to look at. So when you really look at it, these are the big prosperity vectors that you're looking at. And I was given the topic to say beyond economic prosperity. So I'm not going to focus on work, mobility, or education. I'm going to focus on living and health, which is why I said, if you were expecting that you would hear a lot about technology and other things, that's not what you're going to hear. You're going to hear more about living in health today, because that is what is beyond economic prosperity. Back. Yeah. So as we said, we're going to focus on health and living. All of you have heard of IQ and heard of EQ. Now we will talk about HQ, the happiness quotient. The question of how happy are you? If I give you $1 million, is that going to make you happy? But if you have an ailment, I don't believe so. You're going to possibly look at it from that aspect. So what is it that really is going to make you happy? The sense of living, and the standard of if you have a standard of living, you have good health. Those are good components. Then all other things, worker, workforce, your education, your anything else possibly revolves around that, because ultimately you have one life and you have to live it well, and which is what is important. You can't keep waiting, you can't keep slogging for 60 years and then hoping that from 60 until 85 I am essentially going to enjoy life. At that point in time, money is not going to do too much for you, right? You need to be thinking about how do you do, and which is where we have an interesting concept, not work-life balance, we call work-life fit. What we believe is essentially anything that you do on your work and what you need to do, which essentially makes you satisfied, which makes you happy, whether it's travel, whether it is reading books or lying down on the beach, whatever it is. How do you essentially fit all of that together and form that particular nucleus, which essentially is going to make you happy? And as I said, you'll have one life, so live it well. So where is India from a global perspective? I think the day we achieve health for everyone, not health for just a few privileged, health for everyone at a fairly reasonable, affordable cost, or essentially health for everyone which is free. I think that is where India really needs to look at. And that essentially is when we will lead the world globally. And I don't think anywhere in the world that has still been achieved. The cost of healthcare still remains very high. So just let's futuristic. Look at how health can change and the use of technology. And anybody who wears a iWatch, wearables, a lot of you wear iWatch wearables, yeah? Futuristic, you're going to be wearing a lot more than this. There are going to be a lot of things that will potentially get embedded within you, with your permission, obviously. These are called nanorobots, and you're talking about electroceuticals. Electroceuticals are going to be embedded in your body with the genomic. When you're looking at genomic era, you're talking about your body has about 20 to 25,000 approximate genomes, which essentially are what you call as what will drive you. And today, they are able to program that. So why do you have cancer? They're able to locate that. Why do you have diabetes? They're able to locate that particular gene. And now what is happening is, with the advancement in genomic, changes can be made. We are not saying in the future, when you really look at it from a health perspective, that people it's going to be free of diseases. No, it is going to be better controlled. It's going to be better predicted. It's essentially going to be better managed, so that your standard of living goes up, and your health and your life, you'll possibly live longer and a very happier life. And which is where, when you're really looking at future, you're talking about wearables. So for example, if there was somebody in this room who had a health issue or who was getting sick, the indicators could automatically predict. And let's say the person had a nanorobot inside him. This would go to the healthcare provider. Artificial intelligence computer would analyze the genomic structure. It would analyze the person. It would analyze the symptom, and it would say, this is what needs to be given to this person in this particular dosage. So let's say the person was diabetic. This is the amount of pancreatic glucose that needs to be inserted into the person just in time to basically manage the body, this thing. Rather than them waiting to check their insulin and check all of those particular elements over a period of time, all of these would be controlled. Then automatically what would happen? Your insurance payer would basically settle it if it was something that was covered in insurance. If it was not covered in insurance, automatically it will go to your bank, where your money is taken out, you are paid for, and by the time you, in the next 1 to 2 hours, you're feeling very good, very healthy, because that's the future of health that you're possibly looking at. How many of you have heard the terms roti, food, kapada, clothes, and makan? Your home. How many of you heard of this? Right? All of you have heard this, right? Today I define this very differently. Today I define living as water, good quality air, and free Wi-Fi. Right? If I take away the Wi-Fi, I think I will be affecting the Maslow's this thing. So that's why I didn't take away. But at least the first two are extremely important for each one of you, and that is what it is. And I don't believe we need to be in that kind of a society, that kind of a world, where we are fighting for water, where we are fighting for the quality of air. Because what is going to happen? Go back in time. Why did some of the countries, why did some of the regions become so populous? That's because they had a fantastic environment. That was because they had a fertile climate. They had a lot of things in terms of, same way when you really look at the Americas was very harsh. But when you look at the Indian peninsula and look at it, abundance of water, abundance of rain. So when you really look at all of that, perfect situation where you're really looking at where cultures can basically breed and grow. But as you look at air quality index and all of these changing, and as you look at water, and it's sometimes pains me to look at when we look at the amount of rainfall, the floods, and the fact that in 3 sides of our country, we are basically surrounded by water, that we should have issues with water. I think that is something that we need to solve. Niti Aayog today is essentially trying to work towards that, and I think the Honorable Prime Minister has that as one big commitment, and I think we look forward to that. Similar to that, air quality index. I think that absolute necessity, that is something, it's not a demand, That should be a given. We should not be even talking about it. So the question is the responsibility that each one of us have from a living perspective and what we do. Take a look at this picture. The left is a set of people, 5 people who are just enjoying themselves, and the right is the same set of 5 people who were there in their younger days, right? And what were they doing? All of them were using their phones. They didn't have time for each other. The question and the choice that you possibly need to make is, would you like to be like that set of people, or would you like to be like this set of people? It doesn't mean whether that you have to get old to give away your phones and all things. I don't believe I will give away my devices when I grow up. But it's a question of whether it is the tail wagging the dog or the dog wagging the tail. So the question of, do not be a hostage to your devices. Do not be a hostage to technology. It's important that you essentially manage technology the way it should be, and essentially utilize it like the set of people that you see down, who are enjoying, who are all at a beach or who are all at a picnic, but none of them have devices. Today you go to any kind of a session, you will notice that there'll be phones, people taking pictures, and sometimes I wonder the amount of selfies that are taken and the amount of digital garbage that gets generated. And I think half of the time when people take selfies, I don't think they even have time to see them, which is what is the number of selfies that they take. So the question is, what is it that we are really doing? And then we are spending time on WhatsApp, we are spending time on other social media, and then we have new medical issues, right? Because of that, we have medical issues called text neck, which essentially is causing issues with that. So how do you really manage that? So if you really look at technology, it's a question of how do you manage it, leverage it, and make sure it makes your living much better. So is this what we should be doing in Delhi and in Gurgaon? Why not? Better air quality index. We don't need to go to the gym in the evening. It feels like a community, and it's a better living, a better health, which is what you need to ask yourself. When you look at technology, when you look at prosperity, what are the choices that you would like to make? There's an aspect of work, education, mobility, then an aspect of living and health. Make your choice today, because don't let technology hold you hostage. And as I said before, you live one life, live it well, and enjoy it. Thank you.